If I were president of the United States, I'd do my best to make this happen. I'd give everybody a free college education. Just like when I was a little boy, we had free high school for everyone, unless you were in a private school or Catholic school. Everyone was guaranteed in our country a free high school education because we believed that you couldn't really get ahead very far unless you were educated at least at the high school level. Now they say you need a college education. Without that, you aren't educated enough to do most of what we need to do. So I'd give everyone a free education, but there would be a condition. For the first 2 years before you could enter the college, you had to do 2 years of service. Peace Corps or something like some place where you had to serve, especially the poor. You had to experience what it was to give and do service for others. Then you could come and get your education, which you'd probably appreciate now, and everything else that you had in life, and probably apply yourself much more to really learn. Now, this isn't a big surprising thing. People have said it for years, going all the way back to Jesus and before him. But Albert Schweitzer, I read a quote of his. He was, I think, a Methodist, and he spent many years in Africa, a brilliant man. And he said, if you want to be filled with joy, you must serve. And he identified that the thing that could make a person most joyous was to learn how to serve others. And I'm quite sure he didn't just mean doing service, but having an attitude of service. Because you can serve others and be miserable. Now, if anybody here works for the county, please forgive me in advance, okay? And I'm sure it's not true of all county workers. But our county is huge. It's huge. And it is a system that can't possibly do the service it should do. So these people are just, it's an avalanche of work. So they have to protect themselves. So what do? They get attitude. And they serve you when they're ready. And that's just too bad. You're supposed to be grateful they're doing anything for you at all, even though you're paying in your taxes for them to eat and live. Service, just doing service isn't enough. It's having an attitude of service. So it is no surprise to me that Jesus put right at the center of his teaching, yet still another thing, serving others. And today it's a great scene, this gospel. Imagine they're walking along and two brothers come up and say, two of the apostles, Jesus, we want something from you. And they didn't just ask, can we have something? We want something. We want you to give us something. So Jesus, so beautifully as usual, said, well, what do you want me to give you? Tell me. And so they said, we want to sit, when you come into your glory, we want to sit at your right and your left side. In other words, have places of honor, places, special places. The other 10 were just horrified, indignant, the gospel says. And he says, can you drink of the cup I'm going to drink of? Be baptized in the baptism that I'm going to share? Oh, we can. He says, you will. But they hadn't a clue what that meant. That's why they could so glibly say, of course we can. Yeah, you will, after you run away out of fear. But you will share in it. And they did. But then the other 10, all upset, showing their indignation, Jesus summoned them all to teach them. Now, this is about the third time in 5 Sundays that we've heard this message. And his lesson to them, his teaching was, if you want to be first, you got to be last. If you want to be first, you shall be servant to all. In fact, today's language is even more stark. You must be the slave to all. Now, again, I tell you, it isn't enough just to do the service. I mean, you could ask, why are people here this morning? I hope what I'm going to say here applies to only 1 out of 100. Less even. It'd be nice. We can come out of obligation. I'm a Catholic, I have to go. We can come out of fear. If I don't go and I sin, is God going to be angry at me? Oh, God, would he condemn me? I got to go. We can give our money that way, too. We can say, here's my money for the collection. Oh, that hurt. Oh, that church always wants money. It's not enough. It's not enough. It's not what we do, it's how we do it. And that's what Jesus goes after, having an attitude of service, I want to serve all. It's not about being last after everybody, counting up everyone here and, okay, I'll be last in communion line, or it's having the attitude that puts others first, where we truly are servant to others. Now, I'm going to tell you a story as I understand it. Probably most of you know it better than I do. And if I have some facts wrong, just understand I have a dyslexic mind. I put things in different orders. I mess things up all the time. But basically, I'm on the right page. It's about Mother Teresa, St. Teresa now. My understanding, this is fact, she was from Albania. She became a sister, a religious. And she ended up in a community in India, in Calcutta, very wealthy school for girls. She taught behind these high walls, very safe and protected. She was a good sister, I'm sure. But one day she was going to her doctor's, as I understand, and on the way back, walking back, she sees a man in one of the poor cities of the world lying in the gutter, covered with dirt and mud and bugs and worms, and obviously dying in his last hours of life. And she was so completely moved with compassion, just like the Good Samaritan story. She got some helpers, and they carried him to her convent, where she cleaned him up and put something clean on him and fed him, held his hand and prayed with him till he died. She just gave him an hour or two of dignity before he died. And she was so transformed by this experience, she decided to leave her comfortable religious life in this community of many years and begin her own community. And the purpose of it was to do this, to serve the poorest of the poor. Not just the poor, the poorest of the poor. That was her commitment. And her commitment to service was so overwhelmingly attractive that lots of men and women joined the community, and they're all over the world now, the Sisters and Brothers of Charity. Now, this should be a sign to us. They are missionaries to us in LA. They're missionaries to Rome, where the head of our church is. Doesn't that say something? The oldest church in the world in Rome, well, among the earliest years, and they have gone missionaries to that church. Beautiful Rome, the eternal city. Why? Because maybe we don't know the mission. We may be doing all the religious things, but do we know the mission of Jesus? It's not even the mission of the church. The mission of the church is the mission of Jesus. And I guess it's not about us having the mission, it's about the mission having us. Because you see, Mother Teresa, she was a fine woman, a fine religious, doing fine work for the church, doing fine work for God. But in one moment of time, something grabbed her and reshaped her entire life. But let's flip the coin for a moment. What if she was walking by and she said, oh my God, oh, filthy, oh dear God, oh, I can't get my habit dirty. I got to get back to class. Oh, the poor thing, I hope he gets some help. Could have done that. But instead, she was drawn into this moment of compassion so overwhelming, it literally changed her whole life. I believe that when we have an experience like she had, it really is the full-blown meaning of the cross grabbing us. It's no surprise to me that the cross is the most important symbol of our faith. The cross is what all of these readings say today about being servant to others. And it said that it talks about the suffering servant becoming a ransom for others. What a way to talk about Jesus' death on the cross. He ransomed us from sin. And I don't mean from sins, like I lied, I cheated, I stole, but from the deeper sin that all of that is a part of, the inhumanity and inhumanity to one another. When we stop being human, compassionate, loving people, and we can so easily, especially in a big, materialistic, overcrowded society, it's so easy to only look and take care of self. But Jesus is up on that cross. He's been spit on and stripped naked and beaten and forced to carry it and thorns shoved in his head and ridiculed and mocked and rejected. And whatever pain he suffered, which apparently was just excruciating, was it even worse? Perhaps it was the rejection that he experienced, not just of him personally, but of everything that he had been doing for those 3 years in terms of teaching and ministering to people. And even as he's in his last minutes, perhaps, of life, they're saying, well, if you're really God, come down from the cross. That's good. And at that moment, he is able to find in the deepest part of his spirit the most human response that could ever be done. Father, forgive them all, they know not what they do. As they're rejecting and hating and killing him, he's loving and forgiving them. Now that's the power of the cross. And once we get touched by that, we can never be the same. We can't. You can't let that in as a truth and then be the same. It's impossible. Maybe it doesn't get in. Maybe we're afraid of it. But the cross is an overwhelming expression of limitless and unconditional love. And that's what Jesus invites us to. If we dare to grab hold of his call of service, I can guarantee you and myself, just like Schweitzer, we will find joy, overwhelming joy. Not doing it because we have to, but we have to do it because it's so compelling. Not doing it for God, doing it for us. God is inviting us into it. It's not to please him, it's to gift us and to make us the most human and beautiful people we can be for ourselves and for one another. Now, what a gift that these readings come to us when we're celebrating World Mission Sunday. The whole world is being asked to give to the missions today. With readings like this, how can we resist? Usually on worldwide collections, I say, whatever, give what you can, because, it's worldwide. They're going to make a lot of money. But in this way, I say, no, give generously. Because we are supporting the mission work of Jesus Christ through his church. We're supporting the people that go all over the places that we wouldn't go to so that the mission, good news, gospel of Jesus Christ could be shared and preached to others. And we need on this Sunday not only to gift it with our money, but I think the extra step is needed. We need to let this mission call enter into us and hook us, grab it, just like it did Mother Teresa. Because if it does, I can guarantee you our lives will be different. But let me flip the coin again. What happens if we don't let it in? What happens if we don't let it in? Look around. Look around at the inhumanity and coldness that so often embraces the lives of many people and the world. Look at the wars that are going on. Look at the hatred and the divisions. Look at our inability to even talk to each other, much less listen to each other. That's what Jesus became a ransom for, to teach us the possibility of being truly human. Because when we are truly human, we are truly grace-filled.